I never thought I'd be sharing my life story on Reddit, but here I am. I'm a 26-year-old guy, and my life has taken some unexpected turns lately. I need to get this off my chest, so bear with me. For the past year, things have been going incredibly well for me professionally. I work as a freelance graphic designer, and I've been landing some high-paying gigs. It's gotten to the point where I've even set up my own graphic design studio with 23 employees. My parents are over the moon about my success, especially given how much I used to struggle. Growing up, I was always the black sheep of the family. My older brother Arnie, 30, and younger sister Becca, 24, were the stars. Arnie was an average student, but he was athletic, charismatic, and popular. Becca was the brainiac, always bringing home straight A's and making the honor roll. Me? I was terrible at school and awkward around people. The only thing I was good at was art. Arnie never let me forget how much of a failure I was in his eyes. He'd constantly tease me, saying things like, "Hey loser, still can't figure out basic math?" Or, "I bet you'll be living in mom and dad's basement forever." One time in high school, I worked up the courage to ask a girl to the dance. Arnie overheard and laughed in my face. He told everyone at school that his pathetic little brother actually thought he had a chance with a girl. I was so embarrassed I skipped school for a week. Another time, during a family barbecue, I was excited to show everyone a painting I had been working on for weeks. Arnie took one look at it and said, "Wow, did a kindergartner paint that?" Everyone laughed, and I felt my face burning with shame. I went to my room and didn't come out for the rest of the day. Our parents tried to be supportive, but I could tell they were disappointed in me. They'd praise Arnie for getting C's and Becca for her perfect grades, then awkwardly change the subject when it came to my report card. Family gatherings were the worst. Relatives would fawn over my siblings' accomplishments while giving me pitying looks. I'd overhear comments like, "Poor thing, he's just not as bright as the other two, is he?" Despite all that, I knew I had talent with art and design. I decided to pursue graphic design as a career, even though my family thought it was a waste of time. The first few years were rough. I worked part-time jobs to make ends meet while trying to build a portfolio. Arnie would make snide comments about how I should get a real job and stop playing around with crayons. I remember one particularly bad fight we had about it. I had just finished a small logo design job for a local business, and I was proud of my work. When I showed it to my family, Arnie scoffed and said, "That's it? That's what you wasted 4 years of college on? I could do that in 5 minutes with Microsoft Paint?" His words stung, but I tried not to let it show. Things started to turn around when I met Alice, 26F, in college. She noticed me sketching between classes and asked if I could draw her portrait. I was nervous, but I agreed. When I showed her the finished drawing, her eyes lit up. She said it was the best portrait anyone had ever done of her. We started hanging out more after that and eventually began dating. Alice believed in me when no one else did. She encouraged me to keep pursuing my passion for design. With her support, I started putting myself out there more and picking up small freelance jobs. Slowly but surely, my skills improved and my client base grew. When I introduced Alice to my family, Arnie couldn't resist taking a dig at me. He pulled her aside and said, "How did a nerd like him land a hottie like you? You must have lost a bet or something." Alice just rolled her eyes and told him to grow up. I was grateful for her defense, but part of me wondered the same thing. How did someone like me end up with someone like her? The past year has been amazing. My business took off, and suddenly, I was the successful one in the family. My parents started bragging about me to their friends. Even Arnie seemed impressed, though he tried not to show it. I remember the first time I showed up to a family dinner in my new car. The look on Arnie's face was priceless. For once, he didn't have anything snarky to say. I thought everything was perfect. Alice and I had been together for years, and I was planning to propose soon. She spent a lot of time at my family's house, and I was touched that she made an effort to bond with them. She and Becca became particularly close, often going shopping or getting coffee together. I was happy that Alice was becoming part of the family. Then last week, my whole world came crashing down. I got a video message from Arnie. When I opened it, I couldn't believe my eyes. It was a recording of him and Alice being intimate. I felt like I was going to throw up. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped my phone. In shock, I called Alice right away. I confronted her about the video, hoping there was some explanation. Maybe it was an old video from before we met. Maybe it was some sick joke. Instead, she just laughed. She told me that Arnie was twice the man I'd ever be. When I asked how long it had been going on, she said it started not long after she met my family. Apparently, she'd been sleeping with Arnie for years, right under my nose. I broke up with her on the spot. Her parting words were, "You were never man enough for me anyway. I needed a real man like Arnie." I'm devastated. The woman I thought I'd spend my life with betrayed me in the worst way possible, and my own brother. I knew Arnie and I had our issues, but I never thought he'd do something like this. It feels like my entire life has been a lie. I don't know what to do now. My business is doing great, but my personal life is in shambles. How do I face my family knowing what Arnie did? How do I trust anyone again after what Alice did? I feel lost and alone, like that awkward failure of a kid all over again. Every time my phone rings, I feel a surge of anxiety. Part of me hopes it's Alice calling to say it was all a mistake, but I know that's just wishful thinking. I can't eat, I can't sleep. I've been throwing myself into work, staying at the office until late at night just to avoid going home to an empty apartment. I haven't told my parents or Becca what happened yet. I'm not sure how to even begin that conversation. Will they even believe me? Or will they think I'm making it up out of jealousy? Update 1. It's been a month since I found out about Alice's betrayal with my brother Arnie. I want to thank everyone who commented on my original post. Your support and advice have been a lifeline during this nightmare. I've been doing a lot of reflecting on my relationship with Alice and how we got to this point. We met in college about 5 years ago. I was sitting in the quad, sketching between classes, when she approached me. She said she'd been watching me draw for a while and was impressed. Alice asked if I could draw her portrait, and even though I was nervous, I agreed. I remember how focused I was while drawing her. Alice had these striking green eyes and a mischievous smile that I wanted to capture perfectly. My hands were shaking a little, but I managed to steady them. When I finished and showed her the portrait, her face lit up. She said it was the best anyone had ever drawn her. That moment sparked our friendship. We started hanging out more after that. Alice would come to my dorm room to watch me work on art projects. She'd bring me coffee during late-night study sessions. I remember feeling so nervous around her at first, always worried I'd say something stupid or embarrass myself. But she had a way of putting me at ease. Gradually, our friendship turned into something more. Our first kiss happened after a late-night study session. We were both exhausted, punchy from too much caffeine. I made some lame joke, and she laughed. Then she leaned in and kissed me. I was so surprised I nearly fell off my chair. Some of my happiest memories are with Alice. I remember our first real date. We went to an art museum and spent hours discussing the exhibits. Alice always encouraged my passion for art and design. When I doubted myself, she'd remind me of my talent and push me to keep going. She'd say things like, "You're going to be famous one day, and I'll get to say I knew you when." Another great memory was our weekend trip to the beach. We rented a small cabin and spent our days exploring tide pools and our nights stargazing on the sand. It was during that trip that I first thought I might want to marry her someday. We were lying on the beach and Alice was pointing out constellations. I remember looking at her, illuminated by moonlight, and thinking I wanted to spend the rest of my life with her. When I introduced Alice to my family, I was nervous. My family had always made me feel inadequate, and I worried they'd somehow scare Alice away. But she charmed them all, except Arnie, of course. He made his usual snide comments, asking Alice how a nerd like me landed a girl like her. Alice just brushed him off and stuck by my side. I remember feeling so grateful and proud in that moment. My sister Becca always supported our relationship. She and Alice became close friends, often going shopping or getting coffee together. I was happy that Alice was becoming part of the family. Sometimes, the three of us would have movie nights or game nights. Those evenings, filled with laughter and friendly competition, are some of my fondest memories. Looking back, I can see the red flags I missed. Alice started spending more and more time at my family's house, even when I wasn't there. She said she was just bonding with my parents and sister, and I believed her. I never suspected she was actually getting involved with Arnie during those visits. Now, I wonder how many of those girls' days out with Becca were actually secret rendezvous with Arnie. There were other signs too. Sometimes, Alice would be oddly defensive of Arnie when I complained about him. She'd say things like, "He's not so bad once you get to know him," or, "Maybe you're being too sensitive." I brushed it off, thinking she was just trying to keep the peace in the family. Now, a month after the breakup, I'm trying to focus on my work. My business has been booming, with new clients coming in every week. I've been throwing myself into projects, working long hours to keep my mind off everything. It's exhausting, but it's better than sitting at home alone with my thoughts. I set up a home office so I could work from home when needed. It's been helpful to have a space where I can be productive without facing the outside world. I've been avoiding social media and most of my friends. I just can't bear to see happy couples right now, or to answer questions about where Alice is. But yesterday, something happened that pushed me over the edge. I came home in the evening to find my home computer completely fried. Smoke was coming out of it, and the smell of burnt electronics filled the air. I knew immediately that this was Arnie's doing. He's always been tech-savvy and has a history of pranks that go too far. I was furious. Not only had Arnie betrayed me with Alice, but now he was actively trying to sabotage my work. All my current projects, client files, and backups were on that computer. Months of work, potentially lost. I stormed over to my parents' house where Arnie still lives to confront him. When I got there, Arnie was lounging on the couch, smirking. My parents were in the kitchen. I demanded to know why Arnie had destroyed my computer. He just shrugged and said, "Prove it was me." That smug look on his face made me want to punch him. I turned to my parents, expecting them to back me up or at least be concerned. Instead, they seemed annoyed that I was causing a scene. My dad said, Now, I'm sure it was just an accident. These things happen with computers." My mom chimed in, "Maybe you should have been more careful with your equipment." I couldn't believe it. After everything Arnie had done, they were still taking his side. It was like I was that insignificant little brother again, my feelings and concerns dismissed. I felt like I was suffocating, like the walls were closing in on me. That was the last straw. I realized that no matter what I achieved in life, my family would never truly support me or take my side against Arnie. So I made a decision right then and there. I went home, packed my bags, and left. I've moved into a small apartment across town. It's not much, but it's mine, and it's far away from all the drama. I'm going to focus on my business and on healing from all this betrayal. I've blocked Arnie's number and told my parents I need some space. It hurts to cut ties with my family, but I think it's necessary for my mental health. I'm not sure what the future holds, but I know I need to prioritize myself for once. No more being the family punching bag. No more letting Arnie's words get to me. No more seeking approval from people who will never give it. I'm scared, if I'm being honest. I've never really been on my own before, but I'm also hopeful. For the first time in my life, I feel like I'm taking control of my own story. Update 2. It's been 6 months since I moved out of my family's house and started living on my own. I want to thank everyone again for their support and advice. Your words have been a source of strength during this difficult time. These past months have been surprisingly peaceful. I've been focusing on my work and on healing. My business has continued to grow, and I've even landed a few major clients. One of them is a well-known tech company that wants me to redesign their entire brand. Identity. It's a huge project, and I'm both excited and nervous about it. I've also started seeing a therapist to work through my trust issues and family trauma. It's been helpful to have a neutral party to talk to about everything. We've been working on building my self-esteem and setting healthy boundaries. It's a slow process, but I'm making progress. I thought I was finally putting all the drama behind me, but life had other plans. This morning, as I was walking into my office, I saw a familiar figure standing outside. It was Arnie. My heart started racing, and for a moment I considered turning around and leaving. But I decided to face him. I've spent too much of my life running from confrontations with him. As I got closer, I could see that Arnie looked terrible. He had dark circles under his eyes and seemed to have lost weight. His clothes were rumpled, like he'd been sleeping in them. When he saw me, he rushed over. "Hey, little brother," he said, trying to sound casual. "Got a minute to talk?" I didn't answer right away, just stared at him coldly. Finally, I said, "Make it quick. I have work to do." Arnie launched into a story about how he was in trouble with some loan sharks. Apparently, he'd borrowed a large sum of money and couldn't pay it back. The loan sharks were threatening to do something nasty if he didn't come up with the cash soon. I listened without saying a word. When he finished, he looked at me expectantly. "So, can you help me out? For old time's sake?" I couldn't believe the audacity. After everything he'd done, the years of bullying, sleeping with Alice, destroying my computer, he had the nerve to ask me for money. "I can't help you," I said firmly, "and I don't want you bothering me again. We're done, Arnie." The look on his face was a mix of shock and anger. He opened his mouth to argue, but I turned and walked into my office, leaving him standing there. I thought that would be the end of it. But over the next few days, my phone was flooded with calls and messages from my parents. They begged me to help Arnie, saying it wasn't just about the loan sharks anymore. According to them, they needed the money for urgent medical treatment. Arnie was just trying to help them by asking me. I almost gave in. Despite everything, the thought of my parents being in medical trouble worried me. I was on the verge of calling Arnie back when I got a call from Becca. "Don't do it," she said as soon as I picked up. "It's all a lie." Becca explained that our parents weren't sick at all. Arnie had convinced them to lie to me because he knew I wouldn't help him otherwise. The real reason he needed the money? He and Alice were planning to get married, and they wanted a lavish wedding. I was furious, not just at Arnie and Alice, but at my parents for going along with the lie. It was like a slap in the face, a reminder that they would always choose Arnie over me. I immediately called my family. When my mom answered, I cut straight to the chase. "I know the truth," I said. "I know there's no medical emergency. I know it's all for Arnie and Alice's wedding." There was a long silence on the other end. Then my mom started to make excuses, saying they just wanted the family to be whole again. I didn't let her finish. "I'm done," I said. "I'm not giving Arnie a cent. And I don't want any of you to contact me again. You've made your choice, and now I'm making mine." I hung up before she could respond. Then I blocked all their numbers. It hurt to do it, but I felt a sense of relief afterward. For the first time in my life, I was truly putting myself first. No more trying to win their approval or acceptance. No more being the family punching bag. I know it won't be easy. There will probably be times when I miss them or second-guess my decision. But I also know that I deserve better than what they've put me through. I deserve to be around people who genuinely care about me and support me. So that's where I am now. I'm focusing on my business, my therapy, and building a new support system of friends who value me for who I am. It's not the family I was born into, but it's the family I'm choosing for myself. Thank you all again for your support throughout this journey. Your kindness has meant more to me than you know. I'm not sure if I'll update again. Hopefully, my life will be drama-free from here on out. But I wanted to let you all know how things turned out and to encourage anyone in a similar situation to stand up for themselves. You deserve happiness and respect, even if it means making difficult choices. Take care, everyone.